Hi, my name is Bjorn. Today I'm going to be talking about Romeo and Juliet and the adaptation that is Warm Bodies. When looking through all the recreations and retellings of Shakespearean plays and works, I found that a movie that I always enjoyed was in fact inspired by and follows similarly to Romeo and Juliet. So Warm Bodies is the 2013 movie that follows the zombie named R, as well as the girl named Julie, who he falls in love with. And then over the course of the movie, R is cured by his undeath by finding love and humanity. And by following his example, all the other zombies end up being cured as well. Um, and by doing it even like surface level, digging into the movie, I realized that it was based on the book by Issac Marion. And Issac Marion said that Romeo and Juliet inspired the story, and the story was a way to engage almost all audience members who would see a movie that has either love or zombies. And then it engages it in both a heartfelt story and by telling what it means to be human. So in the story, instead of the Capulets and Montagues, the version has the human survivors and the zombies. And so R is zombie and Julie the human. You have the Romeo, Montague, and Juliet Capulet. Those are the different factions. And so you can kind of see how it would be impossible for both sides to get along. Usually they just kill each other on sight. So for starters, in comparing these similarities, so Romeo and Juliet, R and J, and then we have R and Julie. So it kind of starts with the main characters, but doesn't stop there. One of the side characters, Perry, Perry was Julie's boyfriend at the beginning of the movie, and they were, romantically involved. And Perry is named after Paris from Romeo and Juliet, who was the man who was supposed to be betrothed to Juliet. But unlike unlike Romeo and Juliet, Warm Bodies actually has them in a romantic relationship. Romeo and Juliet, they're very distant from each other, and it is just kind of a one-sided thing. So another difference is the death of Perry or Paris. So in Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, Paris is killed toward the end of the play in a battle in the graveyard with Romeo. However, in Warm Bodies, Perry is killed also by this version's Romeo, R, but at the very beginning of the movie, and it acts as kind of a way for Julie and R to get closer now that Perry is out of the picture. It is quite a departure from the source material, especially if you consider that Perry is killed by this version's Romeo eating his brains. So another small similarity is Romeo and Mercutio. So in Warm Bodies, you have R and his best friend M, who is also a zombie. So unlike Romeo and Juliet, Mercutio isn't part of the royal family, but is just one of the zombies. So when you consider a lot of Romeo and Juliet's retellings, one of the things that is pretty consistently there is the balcony scene. Warm Bodies does have that balcony scene, and it is pretty similar to the source material, in which R calls up to Julie and, is essentially saying, hey, I'm here, I found you, I actually like you. But it's not as forward as in Romeo and Juliet. There's no true oh, I love you, I'm professing my love, let's get married. It's a much humbler, more as you would see in a modern romance movie in terms of that. And then lastly, the stories are very different in their endings. So Romeo and Juliet is a traditional tragedy in which the ending might have a resolution, but it's not always a happy ending, especially not for the main characters. However, in Warm Bodies, what we do see is a big resolution for the story. So there's a happy ending for the world, and there's a happy ending for our characters. Spoilers, I guess. R and Julie both end up being able to live together and have that romance. And then so just to wrap up, considering the audiences today and the love for movies with clear and wrapped up endings that usually end happily or with a grand resolution, it's clear why Marion wrote this story and why this movie was produced. It takes the traditional formula of Romeo and Juliet that was so well received and spins it to engage audience who both love action and romance, as well as a pinch of horror and humor, to create one of the more poetic versions of this story. By changing the message of tragic lovers to one of finding humanity in dark times, the story rises to a height that was evident in both the critical and audience reception. This is a movie, very popular. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. Anyways, thank you very much.